All right, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more about mid-poly workflow, and I'll try to keep this video as short as I can, but it's going to probably be pretty long. So first up, we're looking at a screenshot from Cyberpunk, right? And mid-poly models, Cyberpunk's a great example of this. Now, also Star Citizen, but most of these models have little chamfers on all the edges, right? And this is so you can use face-weighted normals, basically, custom normals. So this is happening all over the model. There's chamfers here, chamfers there, but there's other things happening too, which can throw you for a loop. So for example, this is a decal, and it's going to use a height map basically and parallax occlusion in order to create depth to it. But this can happen in places where you actually don't think it's occurring as well. So like up here, for example, this looks like it's modeled like the door of this locker, but this is actually not edges. This is a decal, right? So this whole section here is a decal. And you can tell that on this one a little bit better because it looks just a little bit odd and there's a little sharp edge in there. So yeah, that's not actually modeled decal as well. These materials right here, you can think of this as just like base metal material, but you can see it, the roughness changes here. This could be something to do with the lighting, but more than likely it's a material blend, or what Cyberpunk does anyways, is it's a material layer system. So it's actually very involved. It can get very complex, but the main idea is that they're probably using a mask to blend between this base metal and a dustier kind of look up here anyways. So two materials blended together. Now, trying to do all of this in Blender is actually pretty rough. Unreal Engine's a better spot to start using these different types of techniques. So you do want to try to move out of Blender as fast as possible and into Unreal Engine when you're starting to set up shaders and decals and all that fun stuff. You're probably going to be baking in Substance Painter more than likely as well. Baking in Blender is very rough, so it's not that easy to do. And what we're going to be dealing with mostly here in this video is just the modeling aspect of it and playing around a little bit with the idea of doing material layers or blending, and just the very basic idea of it anyways. Now, also, this has something else interesting going on here. There's a little bit of edge wear over here. Now, this could have been done with a decal, but sometimes it's hard to tell what I'm looking at when I look at models in like Cyberpunk or wherever on how exactly they're approaching these things. So while it could be a decal, it could also be a material layer. So that's something that's very possible, depending on how they set up their shaders and utilize them and whatnot, right? You can see that they have on a lot of the models that have like these micro details, if you would, that are just kind of mixed into the model itself, and the blends are controlled by a mask basically. Red Engine, from my understanding, can support up to like 20 masks per object or material. So it's quite a bit. It's pretty involved actually. All right, now with that out of the way, let's just jump over to Blender real quick. Now on the modeling side of this, it's really not that crazy. It's actually the easiest part of this whole process is the modeling, in my opinion. But so if I was to just go ahead and start working out a locker here real quick. Let's get it going. I'm gonna kind of fly through this. This isn't a modeling video. It's not, well, it's not entirely a modeling video, but not like a basic modeling video anyways. I'm just going to try to dissolve this edge going around here. Not the top of it though. Keep it in the wrong keys. All right, we got that going. Do a door, inset. Just going to extrude it in. Press P, separate selection, grab that face and extrude it back out. So it's two different objects right now, basically. This one here is going to get a chamfer right here. Like that. We'll move on to the door now. Just / to isolate it. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker, even if it's unrealistic, but we'll do it. What I want to do here is inset this a little bit. I want to bevel this vertex, so Control B and V. We'll make it similar to what we see in Cyberpunk there. Control X those faces just to get rid of those edges, otherwise it destroys your setup here. So inset hold control, something like that, right? Now I'm just going to use box cutter, so I'm going to Alt W, hit D, make sure I'm using box, right? And we can go through here, select this, click drag. We don't need it that big, maybe something like this. Send it through a little bit and then hold shift click, go into edit mode, select these edges, and just do a big chamfer on them, okay? I'm gonna pull it up. So that's roughly halfway here. I'm gonna array this down real quick, and we're gonna array it 4 times, put it about halfway there. You could definitely set the numbers here and make this more precise. I'm just kind of flying through this, so I'm gonna take this, shift select that, Alt Shift X with machine tools, mirror that over. We get this setup going like this, okay? And we could probably make this a little bit different, but I feel like it should be dragged in a little bit more, perhaps. Yeah, something like that. And we'll make it a little bit, just this one, not both of them. Make it a little bit shorter. I'm gonna symmetrize it up. Redissolve that so the booleans work out better, hopefully. Might have to readjust the length here. Anyways, we got it going. So it's non-destructive right now, but let me just go ahead and apply the boolean. We'll delete that cutter now. We have this set up. Let's take this a little step further. Just going to do a knife cut. So K and Y in this case. I'll take this little section, extrude it out a bit, bring it up like that. This isn't going to be recreating that model one-to-one, but I just wanted to get it going so you guys can see what's going on here, right? Okay, and we got a couple little things left to do. Besides the interior, we're not going to do the interior of it. The main thing is that while it would be tempting to like solidify something like this, right, you would get something like this going, which, you know, it might work out okay. Actually, you'll see that it creates like a bunch of extra faces in here that you probably don't want. Just wanted to point that out real quick. That solidify is not always your best option. Sometimes it's better to maybe like grab this edge here, press E, right click, S, and then X, S, Z, and then just extrude it in on Y, and then press F. All right, so if you do that, you can create an interior space a lot quicker. I want to just go ahead and delete this all though, so we'll have an easier time unwrapping and everything. Plus, they had more going on the inside of this than what I just shown there. I'll Alt H and unhide this now, so there we go. Let's do a little cleanup here. We don't need those edges. They don't make any sense, so we'll get rid of them. These ones can stay for now. All right, and yeah, so basically what we're looking at here, I'm gonna make them a little bit gray real quick. That's kind of a low poly model, right? Like that's the easiest way to look at that. It's like a low poly mesh for the most part. Now a mid poly, because it's going to have chamfers on everything, we're going to do this the easy way with hard ops. Just press Q, which adds the bevel modifier and does this number, okay? Now, your bevel, change outer emitter to arc if you're doing it manually. The rest of this is pretty much default. So, bevel, one segment, right? It's little chamfers on it. So one segment's going to be a chamfer. If it was more curved with more segments, it would be a fillet or a fillet. But the main thing is we got this going. So your mid poly isn't that much more complicated than the a low poly like this, right? They're very similar. But this, like if we shade it auto smooth, obviously it would make no sense. Like we did chamfers. Well, so, but if we shade it smooth, it doesn't work correct, or it doesn't look correct anyways. Right. This is the main difference, is that we can weight the face normals, right? So what I'm going to do is we'll do this one manually first. We'll just do a weighted normal. Okay, and you can see it looks nice, right? So with hard ops, Q, alt click, sharpen. All right, that'll do a weighted normal. And it looks like so now. So these little chamfers, when you weight the normals, they start to look like bevels, basically. It's the main thing. Whereas like a low poly model, you would have to, when you're trying to finish this out as a game mesh, you would have to, these will all be sharp, so you'll have to mark them as seams. Mid-polys, you don't exactly have to do that because it's all shaded smooth, but it's face weighted. And so it looks something like so. Now we're still going to have little issues. Let me turn box cutter off before it does something crazy. We're still going to have little issues in here, possibly with shading and whatnot. We might not have any that are super noticeable, but right here you might see it. It might be hard to see in the recording, but there's triangulation going to this corner, right? And it creates this like little weird shading artifact. This is going to happen on these types of meshes, right? And the reason for that is the way this actually works. So let me just kind of give you a quick example here. I got to apply this this chamfer, this bevel. I'm going to apply it. And under this drop down in edit mode right here, we can turn on split normals, turn those up. All right. And we can come down here now, just make sure it's shaded smooth. And what we're looking at is with a mesh like this, it's completely shaded smooth, right? There's no weighted normal to it. We're looking at our split normals like this. So every vertex will have a normal coming out of it. Now, if it was shaded flat, they would be split like so, right? And that's what makes everything sharp, basically. Okay. And so since we're using smooth shading, they're like this, but they're kind of chaotic. They're kind of going all over the place. So when you apply a weighted normal to this, and what it's doing is that it's doing this. It's straightening them out, basically. So it's going from crazy to a little bit straighter like this, but you can see they're still slightly canted and going different directions. Weight at 50, set it to 100, and you'll see what happens here. It's going to straighten them out even more, okay? So at 50 there, they're still slightly curved. At 100, it's a little bit better off. And you'll notice that when we set that up at 100, this little artifact goes away, okay? Now, but you do run into a problem with this. Sometimes you want ones at 50, sometimes you want them at 100, depending on the face and the way it's set up. And this can happen when you have more curved mesh, right? In our case, it's very cubic, very squared. So 100, just set at 100 here would work for us. But if it was more curved in other areas on the mesh, and we set it all to 100, we'd have artifacts elsewhere. So what we want to do is use face influence, right? You have to apply your chamfers to do this. But once you've done that, you can take a set of faces like so, right? And usually not the chamfers. You can Alt in, and you can set face strength to strong. That's going to straighten them up. You see where it just did that? Okay, so that's setting them to 100 basically, whereas medium, which is what it comes in as by default, is going to be the 50 there, right? Okay, so we can actually modify those individually and just using face influence. So you'll want to use that at some point, but if you can get away with just setting it to 100, then use that. In our case, we'll be okay with using 100 and on this model anyways. So let's do that. Let's go over here and just set them to 100. You can see they change a little bit, right? And we'll set that to 100 as well. We have this setup going. So basically, now all we got to do is take this and unwrap it real quick. And we have the bevels, which we can apply, right? To unwrap this, we have to apply these. If you bevel after unwrapping, then you'll have like UV issues on the chamfers. Usually, not always, but sometimes. Mostly, anyways. So, but we apply the bevels. We have all this set up like this now. Let me turn those split normals off. You get the idea there. And so unwrapping this, you're looking for glancing angle areas. Like if this is meant to be viewed from the front, the glancing angle would be more on the edge here, right? So like you wouldn't want to add a seam here, you'd want it there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go start marking seams everywhere. Just going to use a UV Toolkit pie menu to do it, which UV Toolkit was on the extension section. So I don't know if it's still there, but it should be. If you get it, Shift F is the pie menu. Now, these little sections like this, if you do select loops, boundary loops, right, you can mark these as seams too, like that, right? That one works out really well. And you can see this is on the front now, not back here. So you can also control click through areas, mark a seam, again, keep moving on basically, or unmark seams anyways. It's also a mirror selection, which can be quite good. Select mirror. You just make sure you click extend and pick the right axis. That's the main one for that, which I might use here in a second. But You can see this on the back side might work out better. Okay, and that's it. So we're going to keep moving now. Try to get through this whole thing. A seam there. You can see it probably remarked one up here. Yeah, it did. Okay, not the end of the world. You can always tilde key, view selected, alt middle click around, get to your different parts of your mesh real quick like that. You may have to clean this up a little bit. Sometimes those chamfers don't work out perfectly. So you would want to go through and possibly merge some vertices and work with it a little bit more, right? Now, on a side note, you can get away with these triangles. It's not the end of the world to do this, but if you have the Mesh Machine add-on, you can turn triangles into quads very quickly just by pressing Y and choosing quad corner. And you can adjust those if you need to. Sometimes the triangles work, sometimes the quads work better. It's a judgment call. So really cool way of working with that. And also, if you ever found that you wanted to make adjustments to things like this, you would have to set these to quads in order to use the fuse feature. So if you just want to point out how Mesh Machine works a little bit, you have to have quads like this. But if you have a chamfer, you can fuse things, and fuse basically lets you bevel that, right? Or you can hit W and change the size of it. So your chamfers will be beveled. You can still bevel them. If you've created a bevel or a chamfer, you can unchamfer or unfuse, or excuse me, unbevel it as well. So that's a little bit weird how it works sometimes, but you select a strip like that and then unbevel, boom. You see? So I'm not doing all that right now. We're going to go back real quick before I run out of undos here. But the main thing is that that's possible, right? You don't have to do every edge like you would when you're working with sharps, right? So sharps, every sharp edge needs a seam. But when you're working on a mesh that's already shaded smooth, like all your seams, like you can leave islands bigger basically. You don't have to do as many split up islands. And so that's a nice aspect of it as well, because every time you do a UV seam, it adds like vertex data, it makes the geometry heavier, and it's more, it's not as performant for a game engine anyways, right? So this whole section should be about done right now. We'll check it here later. Let's do the door real quick and just keep moving. This door is going to be a little bit more painful to do because there's a lot more going on, but for the most part, we can just do some quick stuff here, right, to get this going. A lot of times you can grab like areas like this, boundary select, and just do that. The UV toolkit add-on, it used to be 8 add-on, right? But it has a border seam, which is the same thing basically, so that's nice. But I think it's on extensions, right? Last time I was looking at extensions, I think I saw it. So you can see, like, I can go through and do that number all day long. No problems. You can also probably do mirrors on those as well. But C for the cursor selector. And just click to select, middle click to deselect, right click to get out of it. That's the whole way that works anyways. So this area is a little bit, I don't know, it should be okay. Not sure how I want to do this whole area right here. Now I think we'll do this as a seam up here. Take this one down and around. This isn't going to be probably the best it could be. And we'll do this one as well. Okay. Probably could leave those combined together a little bit more, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. We'll just go down the back side here. Just trying to control click all the way down. Should have worked. Yep. Go back up on this side. Back to itself. There you go. Oh, okay. We got a little issue here. Let's merge that. And we got another little issue here as well. The doing the seam on the top, we don't get this quite right. So this will work too. I don't think I don't think it'll be too bad. We'll be all right. We'll move on. These might need to be split as well a little bit in this area. Just kind of split what you need to split and do all your proper UV unwrapping or UV mapping anyways. Try to keep it going real quick. Do that to there. Do that one down there. So you can see, like, you just pick a side basically. It's kind of fun unwrapping this way because it's not like you got to worry about center edges and stuff necessarily. You still got to worry about your edges, but it's not like you're counting your segments as much. All right, that one will be okay there. Did I miss something down here? I feel like I missed something. All right. See, okay, yeah, we did. See? Right here. The same thing we were just doing on the other side, basically. We'll mark that so if I lose my selection, it's there, and I think that's it. Takes a little time to do this, right? But it's not that hard. Okay, we're all one'd out right now. That's good. Let's grab both of these. Go into edit mode with them. Go to UV editing here. Press U and unwrap conformal. Okay. And if we control Alt space bar, we can go full screen. Full middle mouse to zoom in and out. If we have things that are going kind of crazy, we would need to fix this stuff, generally speaking. In our case, there might be a better way of working that out. But Blender sometimes does just unwrap a little bit goofy, so just want to make sure I'm not looking at like an extra vertex or something in here. We could try grabbing that island and re-unwrapping it. Sometimes it, for whatever reason, will actually work. You could turn fill holes off, see if that helps. You can try minimum stretch maybe, see if that does something a little bit different. Angle based. This is, let's turn UV sync on. Grab this area. Tilde key view selected. / a second. Oop, it won't let me apparently. Trying to figure out where this is. It's on the inside of the door. Okay. If something does unwrap kind of terribly like that, because this looks like it's unwrapping all the way around the model right now. I might have missed a seam somewhere. It's a possibility. And in our case, I think it is. I think it's right here. Usually it means you got something like you need to do your seams a little bit different or just change something. The topology maybe a little bit or something like that. So I got a double right here too. You see that? So yeah, do take your time to clean your models up properly. Now, if I re-unwrap that, conformal. Oh, let's just do the whole thing. Conformal. Okay. Yeah, it's much more straight now, you see? That's good. That's what you want. Re-unwrap everything conformal, add a checker map, grab my islands, just scale them up real quick. This is the text tools add-on. It's very useful. And we can kind of go through this now and look at the checker map, make sure nothing's like heavily distorted or the wrong size. If it's a little bit rotated, it's not necessarily the end of the world. You can see there's a little bit of stretching in here. It'll be okay. It's not the end of the world. Those areas anyways. And yep, so there we go. That's pretty much it. Let's pack it real quick. Let's do a pack islands. Set it to cardinal so it only rotates 90 degrees. And then you can change the island margin, stick it up a bit, pack it. And Let's see, that's quite a bit of spacing. So let's do that again with less margin. And we're going to eyeball this. After you do so much packing, you'll be able to eyeball the spacing that you need a little bit easier. That's 32 pixels for a 4K image. And it's going to be 16 for 2K and 8 pixels for 1Ks. Yeah, so we can get it a lot more efficient basically if we just tweak that number there. All right. We're pretty much done with that. We don't need this checker. Delete it. We're good. Now, another thing you need to think about, though, honestly, is going to be the dimensions here. So, you know, if this is a 1 meter tall, a little bit over a meter tall, maybe locker, Control A, apply scale, so it's all one'd out. You could look at something like this in edit mode. You can use the texel density checker add-on, and you can say if this is going to be like a 2K texture and you want it at like 1024 here, it wouldn't fit on that 1024 map. So like 1024 pixels a centimeter pixel density. But if it was a 4K, it wouldn't utilize the whole area. So, you know, this is a great add-on to just check texel densities and learn how to work with them better anyways. I'm not going to worry about it in this one. I'm just going to leave it where it was. Just keep that in mind. It's good to be consistent that like one asset and the next asset have similar texel densities anyways. For your mask or whatever you might be generating. In our case, we're doing masks. So, but yeah, that's the basic idea. If we, you know, make sure it's shaded smooth and not shaded auto smooth, we're using weighted normals. We want to triangulate these as well. So just triangulate. It turns into nothing or it looks bad. Keep normals. Okay. If you have sharps on your model, mark sharp or whatever, clear your sharps. What we can do is triangulate this one as well and keep normals. You want to triangulate it so that it preserves the way the tangents are going to look anyways when it gets to substance, when you bake it, and also when it goes to Unreal Engine. You want these this specific triangulation. All right, let's just talk about decals for a second. Some of you guys are going to ask, I know it. So these models, right? Let me turn this off in edit mode. These models, I'm going to separate. So machine tools, you can grab a face and hit 4 and separate the face to a new object, basically. That's what happened there. And we'll S that out a little bit in edit mode. So a decal is nothing more than this for the most part. It's going to be some kind of geometry that matches your mesh for the most part. It can be very close to intersecting. It could even intersect in the game engine. You set up your decal shader. You might be able to do offsets with it in the shader. So now here's the thing. Like you can build decals off of your mesh. So being able to separate it like that very fast and rapidly is a really useful technique of creating decals if you're not using like some specialized add-on for it anyways. So you can see here, this one I just did, I should have separated it first. I did. Okay. Now I thought I did a knife cut through it, but maybe I did not. ACA. Oh, I might have, but it's just didn't show up or something. I don't know. So you can use your existing geo by separating it like that. You can quickly Control I, X, delete. You can create basically a mesh decal that matches your geo underneath very fast by being able to split the mesh apart like that very fast. So your decals would match basically more or less like this, where they're just either in this basically the same area or just slightly above it. And then these would get UV mapped to your decal material / texture sheet, right? Whatever you've created for that texture sheet, you can now, you know, map it to this or map this to that and use any part of it. Otherwise, you can set up your texture sheet, bring it in as a plane, and then cut it up into little parts and pieces and kind of kit bash with it. But your material, your decals will be a different material, right? This would be probably its own material. And that's all I'm pointing out. There's it's not just like all one material or something like that. I'm just going to do an FBX export, selected objects only, and we're going to call this the locker FBX file. Make sure it's triangulated. It's all good to go. Go to Substance Painter, do new, and all kinds of different like presets that you can utilize potentially. You know, use the ones that you think make the most sense for you. And what we're going to be doing here is actually, it's not like high to low baking. We're just creating masks more or less. So compute tangent space per fragment does matter though, because we're going to be baking. This can play a little bit of a role in this, but the main thing is that like Blender is going to be OpenGL, Unreal Engine would be DirectX, and some software uses compute tangent space for fragment, some doesn't. So if this is kicked on and you end up using that, it might be good for like Unreal Engine, but Blender supposedly doesn't like it, but I found that it typically does. But whatever, I think there's all kinds of wrong information out there on the internet anyways. And even the template here, I think, kicks it off by default, but we're just going to leave it on for now. If you ever run into issues where like your bakes or your materials or your textures don't look right in Blender, it's going to be one of those two options usually. It's going to be either you're using the wrong normal map option, should be using OpenGL, or it's going to be compute tangent space. This also affects bakes, by the way. So anyways, we're going to use it on, and we're going to do this locker here. Open. All this is turned off for the most part, or default settings. So click OK. And it comes in like so. You have to bake these still. Go to the Bake tab. We'll just do a 2K. We'll set it to 4. And if you don't have this checked, it doesn't matter. This only matters if you have high polys loaded. So otherwise, it's going to bake the low poly to itself anyways. Sometimes the max frontal rear distance does matter, but for the most part, if you have it set up correctly, just click bake. Those chamfers will, everything should bake out pretty well. Curvature, and you might tweak like ambient occlusion or something a little bit, but you can play around with that on your own. We'll just do the default setup for now. You can see like certain things might not look quite the way you want. All right, just return back, and there you go. So you can see because it's all smooth shaded and weighted, we don't have like any bake issues whatsoever either, which is really nice. Now, that's out of the way. There's a couple ideas here on how you can go about doing material layering for your shader setup anyways, or creating the mask anyways here inside of Substance Painter. Now, the way I'm used to doing it anyways is I just use fill layers, right? So I just do a couple of fill layers maybe, or excuse me, base materials here, like base material, not smart materials. You take one of these base materials, you toss it in here. It's basically something like a fill layer, more or less. So like if you need a metal, right, you need some kind of paint and maybe some kind of rust, boom, there you go. You got it all in there, right? So then this wouldn't need, this base material wouldn't need a mask. There's no need for it. This one, however, once you turn it on, you'll realize it needs a mask. So this is where you could use a mask generator. Boom, come over here. And you can pick the mask generator you want to use, like edges scratched maybe or something, right? You get something like that. Maybe it's not the way you want, so you flip it. And you get something like that. Maybe increase the contrast. Get it all going like this. So the main thing with these masks is that while you can have like a semi-transparent blend between things, paint and metal are two different things entirely. If they start blending together like 50-50, it doesn't look right. So this, if we alt click on this mask here, you'll see it needs to be relatively strong contrast. You can have a little bit of blend, but usually a pretty strong contrast goes a long way for this kind of setup. And if we alt click back, boom, there we go. So that way we don't have them trying to mix with each other. Blender shows this off really, really strongly if there's any slight blend between them. But yeah, this is pretty much it. So that's going to be like that. And here we have a rust, right? And so the rust we can use, I don't know, one of the rust ones. Let's do rust strips and drag that in there. You can see it's a very rough surface texture as well, huh? But yeah, this one we can also grab the mask and tweak it until we get it looking the way we want. These materials don't really matter all that much. I'm going to turn what am I looking at here? Oh, probably the height. Yeah, I thought that was the normal, but no, it's the height. Yeah, so height's off for now, and the normals. None of that matters right now. All that matters is that they look right when they're blending together. And I think this one is okay-ish, but I'd rather increase the contrast a little. And maybe turn down the effect a lot as well. So when you have a mask setup like this, by the way, you can also you can add a paint layer. Now you can pick an alpha. Find a grungy one. And so we can go in here and we can stamp in, or we can hit X and we can stamp out. Notice as we press X, what it's doing is it's swapping black and white here. Okay. So it's going to add black, it's going to add white, but there's also transparent, which the eraser brings back transparent. You notice how I got rid of our rust. So if you want it to come back, make it transparent. In our case here, I just want to knock some of this back anyways. I think it's too much. And so, you know, you might want to go through and just kind of work it out manually a little bit as well. You don't want to overdo everything necessarily, right? And so this is going to be kind of the result we get here. And it's nothing too crazy, right? Knock it back a little. Rotate this as well. Change the size around, increase the hardness of the brush or whatever. Whatever you can do that makes it look nicer. Yeah. Take your time with this kind of stuff. Okay, so overall, a little bit nicer, I'd say. That's it. Okay. Now, the way we've done this, I personally like doing it this way when it's something simple. It's just fast to me. It's easy. We're not messing with these materials at all. So if this was like an Unreal Engine, it's pretty much what we see is what we're going to get for the most part, or something very similar anyways. But these masks, you can you alt click them right to preview what you have here. You do still want them to be relatively heavy contrast. It's going to be so that like the metal doesn't like blend through it and stuff like that. But you could set up your shaders to be able to adjust this later on as well. So if you want to leave it softer, you could. But the main thing is that you can export these. So the mask here, when you right click on it, you can export mask. Then you export it to a file. We'll do a PNG in this case. And this one we're actually going to call mask 1. All right. We export this one. We're going to call this mask 0 actually. Starts at 0 usually. Although I like the idea of it being base material mask 1, mask 2, but mask 0, mask 1, or mask 1, mask 2 actually is probably more correct. Anyways, however you want to look at it, it's a little confusing, right? So these base materials here, you know, you can swap your materials later on. You don't have to use these ones necessarily. But if you're wanting to like create your own base materials like this, you have to have Substance Designer to create SBS AR files and bring them into Substance in order to just toss on a material that you want. But you can use any temporary material real quick, you know, set up your mask here and set up your official material with the textures you want in like Unreal Engine or Blender or whatever the case. So Substance Designer and Painter you should get both of them if you get the chance. So you can do things like that, like an SBSAR file. All right, so yeah, these ones over here are huge. All right, we're gonna hide it. So let's get rid of those. And this one, let's go to shading, create new, Z material preview. This is gonna be a little bit tricky. Blender doesn't really have a material layering system. There's add-ons that try to replicate this or mimic it, but the way it works in like Unreal Engine is going to be a lot better in my opinion. But we're going to try to basically create a very simple blend of materials by using shader blends. So shader, mix shader is what we're looking for, right? So we're going to do 2 blends, so 2 mix shaders. Okay. This is our base material. Let's Shift A, create shader, principled BSDF. Shift A, create principled BSDF. So there's our 2 materials now. We're going to create texture, image texture, texture, image texture. And this is going to be our first one. So we're going to do mask 0. And this is going to be our second one, mask 1. Okay, so this is going to blend into this one. Let's just make it yellow right now. And this is going to be like an orangey brown. Something like that. Okay, it might be a little bit confusing how this is working, but this is like slot A, slot B, slot A, slot B. So it's going to like work down and these are going to blend into it. These masks, most people would think you need to set it to non-color, myself included, but for whatever reason, it seems like Blender has an issue with grayscale images, and sometimes when you bring them in, it just doesn't work the way you expect. Just leave them as sRGB, it should be fine. And we should be able to plug these in now, and we should have a very similar result to what we had. And we can select this and assign that material. So, and turn off those wireframes for a second. Oh, this would have been metallic with less roughness, right? Also, because Blender has different kind of color space going on here, and also we have this HDRI, which I don't care for. We're going to switch it. But yeah, the color space here, the color management, should I say, is AGX, right? So sometimes it looks nicer if you just increase it with contrast, like higher contrast. There's a rotate HDRI add-on you can get off the extensions section. So if you want to do that, you can do that. But you can see like it works out pretty well this way. Now, the only thing we don't have going on is anything super fancy here as far as like, let's make that metal a little rougher actually. We don't have anything super fancy going on because we haven't hooked up any textures to this, right? This would get PBR material textures, basically. This would get PBR. These are basically PBR materials, right? That's how that works out. So we'll just play around with this one here real quick. We won't mess with all of them. But the main idea is like eventually you feed in your PBR material. So you'll bring in your image textures. I'm just going to use a grunge map real quick and pick one that's kind of interesting maybe. These are my personal grunge maps, which you can download if you want. You set this one to non-color and plug it into roughness in this case. Okay. And if we get that reflection on the surface somehow, which I guess we're not going to. Oh, there we go. All right. So you can see it's something like so. When you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, if you select a texture like this and you hit Control-T, it'll create texture coordinates mapping from the UV. You can bump up the scale here. This is a seamless texture, right? And so this is the trick with material layering, is that you start doing stuff like this a lot of times. And so you can add controls to it too. So it's like a semi-procedural setup, generally speaking. Right? So if I want to turn that brightness down or maybe the contrast, you see what's going on there? Like we can start to tweak our setups very easily and increase the resolution. So we almost get like a micro detail kind of thing going on. And we can add, you know, normal maps or ambient occlusion or whatever we got to add to our PBR material setup. You're blending materials basically. Okay. And then on top of this, this is where it gets tricky because you can still add decals that sit on top of this and do all kinds of other fun stuff like that, right? So like information decals, like stickers on the side of this. That's the point of mid-poly workflow. Like the base model and setting up that is not the hard part. It's getting a good material system set up, material layer system. There's little tweaks you can make to your materials as well that would make it look even nicer. Like if you could adjust kind of like the pushed out effect of just this yellow paint, that could look really nice on top of this. So that way it has some depth to it. And that's what's going on in Cyberpunk, guys. Like the whole game is like this. Like even the big towers are chamfered, they're blended. It's insane what they did with that game, to be honest. And it's not something that you're just going to like jump into by accident. You really have to think about how you're setting those kind of systems up. It gets very into like the technical art territory. This is not just standard like art practice, right? It's a lot about optimization and or being able to do. It's a more complex system, so it's one of those things that the basic idea of a material blend is pretty easy, like a 3 material blend using an RGB mask is very easy. So, you know, just to kind of cover that again real quick, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying RGB mask, these are black and white images, they're masks, right? So like even the texture over here, this rust texture I had, it's a mask, more or less. Well, it's a black and white texture. Geometry nodes, no compositor. Use nodes. So if I go in here and I do input images, right? So there's mask 0, mask 1, and rust, right? And color, mix, combine color. So we can blend these together. So red channel, green channel, blue channel of an image. And what this outputs, and do I have a viewer node somewhere? There you go. Okay. That's a pack texture map where you take 3 black and white images, pack them into red, green, and blue channels of a colored image, and it'll create something that looks like this. So now basically, when we come up here, the red channel is this one, the green one is this one, and the blue one is this one. And yeah, so basically that's what you get right there, right? So that's what a pack texture is. And you can imagine that if you're doing a lot of models and you have to blend 3 layers on any given model, a pack texture is very useful. So instead of having to bring in all of these guys like this, you know, you just bring in one image texture, and then these ones you can do convert. Let's see if it's in here. Yeah, separate color. You would be able to separate red, green, and blue channels now and plug them into the different mixers, right? Mix shaders. So yeah, that's pretty much like a little bit more about the setup here. And this is just scratching the surface, really. I mean, you could spend a minute setting up a decal shader. Something just to mention about shaders, right? Like a principled BSDF shader is an Uber shader. And it's kind of like a program or an algorithm that's set up where all the like certain parameters are exposed so that you can, you know, customize it a little bit more. But it's like the framework of a shader, right? Like a bunch of framework stuff. And so the same is true in Unreal Engine. You don't get like shader setups when you install Unreal Engine. You got to create those shader setups. Whereas like back in the day, Unity or like CryEngine or whatever, a lot of times they had shader setups already created, and you could just plug in a height map for terrain or whatever. It was already like a pre-made system. Most game engines don't come with that now. So you actually have to set up that system. There's a lot of guides online. There's a lot of dedicated YouTube channels towards it, but that's what you got to do first. And it can be a little bit of a lengthy process, hard to understand perhaps, but you set up shaders for specific scenarios. So whether it's like you need parallax occlusion on a decal or just parallax occlusion for something in your, like a seamless texture in your environment or something. Different ways of doing that, perhaps, slightly even. So, or a lot, potentially. I mean, it really just depends, but nonetheless, I mean, that's pretty much the trick for that. Like, it's pretty involved. It's not so simple and straightforward. It's not too bad to understand as you kind of like follow along with it. But trying to think of it off the top of your head, I think, without, like, as you're new to it, like, you will learn something, you'll forget something. You'll learn something, you'll forget something. Like, even myself today, I don't remember everything about setting up shaders. Like, I still have to reference either YouTube videos or little PDF documents or guides or ArtStation posts or whatever I can find, you know. I'll reference shader setups and how other people have set things up and then kind of construct my own back together later on. And as you get more into the advanced territories of like 3D modeling or game art or whatever, you'll find this is the case, even if you're doing like VFX and cinema and stuff, is that you don't always have the answers. One of the best things is that you can always find the answers. Well, sometimes you can't even always find the answers, but as you get more experienced, you'll be able to find answers quicker usually, right? Or know where to go to ask for help. Or like you're not sitting there trying to like figure it out on your own, racking your own brain, and then, you know, going over it all day and failing at it all day. You start to figure out these answers a lot quicker and know, you like friends who to rely on and stuff like that. It happens, right? So this kind of setup is, yeah, it's not too bad, right? It's not too bad at all. Now, just the layer setup here that I showed you, this is like the manual kind of way of doing it. There is a shader here for this as well. There's a regular like 3 blend shader, and then there's a 10 blend. Red Engine with Cyberpunk, they had like 20 layers, up to max of 20 layers, I think it was. It was something insane like that. But we'll just go with the small one for now. And you'll see it switches the system entirely. So we get these little slots, or 4 layers anyways. And basically we would plug into these, right? It would be like material here. You gotta actually drop it in there. Material here. And then this is a little bit confusing, so I don't actually like using this one that much. But that's the main idea. You plug them in, and then now you have these here, okay? And why it's so confusing to me is that because I'm going to delete those and do fill layers. These fill layers, before you go off create mask and stuff, make them white. And that will make them fully visible, basically, okay? And so then you can create like black mask, black mask, black mask. You see? So that's our base material. Now this one here, click the mask here. Let's see if I'm even doing this right, actually. I guess I can paint on it for some reason. I don't know what I'm doing here with this thing at all, apparently. No, usually you use a generator. Let's just try like edges Uber for now. Yeah. And then you can invert it maybe. You see, it's the same idea. The only difference with this one is like you can still right click and export these if you wanted to. But you can also, when you do export textures here, you get the masks right here. They'll export each one, right? Now it's going to try it for like roughness, metallic, and everything. You're probably not going to export all of those, just so you know. There's a good chance you're only going to do one of them. There might be even a better way of utilizing this that I just simply don't know about, but I would probably just do like the base color, call it a day, right? Output templates, though, you'll have to create one. So you click the little plus sign, it'll create a little thing. You're going to want to create a little mask setup like this, mesh name possibly, underscore mask, grayscale, and then you would drag and drop blending mask possibly to there, right? And so what that'll do is you'll get these exports like so, right? So if you want to change the format or bit depth, you can. And next time you go and hit export and send it to your desktop or wherever you send it, you'll have 3 black and white images automatically put out, right? That's the big difference between the setup I was doing and using this this shader setup over here, which I don't really care for personally, but to each their own, I guess, right? Anyways, so yep, that's the basic ideas behind this. Of course, you know, you can get really fancy with shaders later on, creating shader systems, layer systems, all that. I'll leave that up to you guys though. So anyways, if you enjoyed watching this one, just leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Check you out in the next one, all right? Take care.